Me and the kids were mocking him for being a weak father until he got fed up, became furious, and then... Hey Reddit, first time posting, but I've always been a passive scroller on this app. My name is Vanessa, and I'm in a bit of a bind. To give you some context, my husband's name is Marcus, and we've been married for about 8 years, though we've been together much longer. We're both in our late 30s. I'm 39 and Marcus is 40, and we have 2 teenage kids who are the absolute lights of our lives. Marcus and I go way back. We met in high school, and our relationship has always felt natural and easy. We've grown up together in so many ways, so even though we've only been married for 8 years, we've been by each other's side for what feels like forever. It's strange to think that we're coming up on nearly 2 decades together, but I guess that's what happens when you've been with someone since you were kids. Marriage wasn't always a priority for us, though. We were both pretty laid back about it, especially Marcus. Marcus has never been one for tradition or paperwork. He used to say that a marriage certificate wasn't what held us together, that love was enough, and honestly, I agreed with him for a long time. We were just happy being together and raising our family. But that all changed when our oldest started asking questions. Kids are so perceptive, aren't they? One day, out of the blue, they asked why my last name was different from Marcus's. That question, as innocent as it was, made us stop and think about how we were presenting ourselves as a family. So, after a few conversations, we decided to make it official and get married. To be honest, the wedding didn't really change much between us. Our lives pretty much went on as usual, and we didn't feel any different just because we had a piece of paper saying we were husband and wife. Marcus stayed the same easygoing, laid-back guy he's always been, and I continued doing most of the organizing and planning in our household. We had always functioned like that, me taking on the role of the decision-maker, while Marcus played the supportive role, just going with the flow. It's worked for us for years, but I think that dynamic is part of why I'm writing this now. Marcus, as much as I love him, has always been the more passive parent. He doesn't discipline the kids much, rarely raises his voice, and tends to be the one who lets things slide. It's not that he doesn't care, he cares a lot, but he's always had this relaxed approach to parenting. I've joked about it with friends before, saying Marcus is the fun parent, while I'm the one who has to be the bad guy, laying down the rules and enforcing consequences. For a long time, it didn't bother me. In fact, I kind of appreciated that balance. The kids could always go to him when they wanted a break from my strictness, and I could always count on Marcus to be there to lighten the mood. But somewhere along the way, the kids started to see him as soft, and so did I. It became this running joke in our family that Marcus was the parent you went to if you wanted to get out of trouble. I'll admit that I contributed to it. When he would let them get away with things I would never allow, I'd roll my eyes or make a sarcastic comment. It was always in jest, but looking back, I wonder if there was more to it. Over time, those little jokes and jabs started to escalate, especially as the kids got older. They started to join in, making remarks about how Dad never gets mad, or how they could always bend the rules when he's around. It was all lighthearted at first. It was always the same pattern. We would joke, poke fun, and laugh at Marcus, and he would laugh along with us, like none of it mattered. That's why I didn't think twice about the teasing. Marcus always took it in stride. He never pushed back or said that the comments bothered him. If anything, he just smiled, maybe rolled his eyes, and let the jokes pass. So when he blew up at us, I couldn't help but think how selfish it was for him to be angry now, after all this time. He never gave us any indication that what we said hurt him. He never once told me or the kids that it was a problem. I realize now that might have been part of the problem. He never said anything. If he had, I swear I would have stopped. If I had known how much it hurt him, I wouldn't have made those comments, and I wouldn't have let the kids keep mocking him. But he never said a word, so we didn't know. We thought it was all harmless fun. After all, he laughed along with us, didn't he? The kids were especially brutal. They would compare him to their friends' dads, ones who seemed more authoritative, stronger, more manly. They'd make biting remarks like, "Dad, you're too soft. You let us get away with anything," or, "You're not really a real man, Dad." They'd even say things like, "Other dads wouldn't let their kids talk to them like this." I thought it was just typical teenage rebellion, kids pushing their limits. I didn't think it was more than that, and, admittedly, I never stopped them. I was guilty too. I drained him, constantly making light of the fact that he wasn't tough enough or didn't stand up to me or the kids. I'd even joke with his friends about how I wore the pants in our relationship and how Marcus was the softie who just let things slide. He never seemed upset. He always smiled and laughed along. That's why I didn't think it was a big deal. But then, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. Marcus became quieter, more withdrawn. He seemed less engaged with me, with the kids, with everything. I didn't take it seriously. I chalked it up to him just being in a mood or going through a rough patch. We all have our off days, right? I never realized it was something deeper. The breaking point came during dinner one night. The kids were in a particularly sarcastic mood, poking fun at Marcus about how he wasn't capable of handling basic fatherly tasks, like fixing things around the house or being the man of the family. It escalated, and I, being the person I was, joined in. I made an offhand comment. Well, I guess we all know who wears the pants in this family. I don't know why, but that particular remark hit him harder than anything else. It's like something in him snapped. He excused himself from the table, and I didn't think much of it at first. The kids and I kept laughing, thinking it was just Marcus taking a moment to himself. Then, a few minutes later, he came back, and I've never seen him like that before. His face was flushed, his eyes were burning with anger, and there was an intensity in his voice that I had never heard in all our years together. He slammed his hand on the table, which startled all of us into silence. The look of fury on his face was something none of us had ever seen before. He shouted that he had had enough. The pain in his voice was undeniable. His words were choked with frustration and hurt as he unloaded years of bottled-up feelings. He told us that we treated him like a joke, that we disrespected him in his own home, and that he was tired of being the punchline. He said that we had no idea how much he did behind the scenes, cooking, cleaning, organizing, keeping things running smoothly, all while we mocked him for not being a real man. The weight of his words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never realized how much we relied on him, how much he did for us while we took him for granted. And now, hearing him say it, I could see just how much pain he had been holding in all these years. He wasn't passive because he didn't care. He was holding it all together because he thought that's what we needed. And we repaid him by treating him like a joke. He yelled that being a good father wasn't about brute strength or laying down the law with an iron fist. It wasn't about being the loudest or the most authoritative. It was about love, patience, and making sure we were all taken care of, even if it meant he was the one left feeling empty. He told us he was tired of being disrespected in his own home, tired of feeling worthless. Then he walked out. He didn't slam the door. He didn't yell anymore. He just left. He came back the next day, but things haven't been the same since. He's distant, cold even. He stopped doing all the little things he used to do, making breakfast for the family, doing the laundry, dropping the kids off at school. He doesn't engage with us anymore. He's cut himself off, and the kids are starting to feel the impact. They've noticed that the dad they used to joke about isn't there for them the way he used to be. He's stopped talking to them, stopped participating in the everyday things that used to bring them closer. I've tried talking to him, tried to apologize, but he doesn't want to hear it. He told me that it's not as simple as saying sorry and moving on. He's been hurt for too long, and those wounds aren't going to heal overnight. He said he's tired of being treated like he doesn't matter, and that he needs time to figure things out for himself. I've never felt more helpless in my life. The kids have tried to make it up to him by taking on more responsibility around the house, but it's not the same. It doesn't fix the damage we've done. I've tried to have a heart-to-heart with him, but every time I try to get through, he shuts down. I can see the walls he's put up, and I don't know how to break through them. And I guess we never really realized how much we depended on Marcus, emotionally, physically, in every way, until he stopped being there for us. Now we're left to pick up the pieces, but I don't know if it's too late. I just want him to get over it and for things to get back to normal. I really don't know what to do. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me. I should have updated days ago, but things have hit the fan, and I haven't been able to get a handle on everything. I really appreciate the helpful advice I received on how to fix things with Marcus, but I feel like I might have completely messed this up, and now forgiveness seems like a distant dream. So here's what happened. There was an incident at school involving one of the kids. which usually would be Marcus's area of expertise because he's always been the calm and level-headed parent. But this time he refused to intervene, and the situation escalated badly. When I got home, I was furious, and we ended up in a massive screaming match. Marcus packed a bag and left so we could both cool off. In my anger, I texted my friends to vent, and they all started bombarding Marcus with messages and calls, telling him to step up and be a father, and even making some hurtful remarks about him acting like a woman. This really pissed Marcus off, and he called me to ask why I would involve my friends in something so private. Instead of apologizing, I doubled down, insisting that my friends were right and that he needed to step up and be a man. I told him it was selfish of him to get angry just because we mocked him sometimes. I argued that if he had spoken up about it, maybe we would have stopped and accused him of being selfish. Marcus went quiet and then hung up. A few minutes later, he sent me a long list of times and examples where we had undermined and mocked him about not being a real man or being soft, both privately and publicly. I'm just going to copy and paste it here because I tried adding the screenshot but couldn't. Also edited the name for privacy. Whenever Marcus did household chores like vacuuming or folding laundry, I would jokingly say things like, "Look at Marcus playing housewife again." And the kids would add comments about how real men don't fold laundry. When Marcus tried to handle discipline calmly, I would criticize him in front of the kids, saying things like he needed to be tougher and questioning what kind of weak dad lets his kids get away with everything. Whenever something around the house broke, I would make comments about needing a handyman because Marcus wasn't handy enough. The kids would chime in, saying things like, "Maybe if you hit the gym more, you could fix things like other dads." When Marcus took a lenient stance on parenting, I would mock him by saying I had to make all the tough calls because he just didn't have it in him. This led the kids to see me as the real authority and Marcus as someone who just went along with whatever. At family dinners, I would joke about Marcus's indecision, saying things like I usually ordered for him because he couldn't make a decision to save his life. The kids would laugh, and it became a running joke. During family gatherings, like watching football with friends, I would join in when the kids mocked Marcus for not being as active as other dads, and I would agree, reinforcing the joke. At school parent-teacher meetings, I would joke with other parents about how Marcus was the more relaxed parent who let the kids get away with everything. During game nights, I would talk about how Marcus always let me win because he didn't have a competitive edge and was too nice, which became a source of ridicule. In the family group chat, the kids would send memes about weak dads, tagging Marcus, and I would laugh along and agree, saying how true it was and how it reminded me of Marcus. Reading Marcus's messages made me realize that these comments and jokes happened repeatedly and in many situations. I didn't understand how much they were affecting him because he always smiled and laughed along, which I misinterpreted as him being okay with it. Now, Marcus isn't responding to my texts, and the kids have been asking for their dad. They weren't home when the screaming match happened, and they're sad and confused about his absence. I understand now how deeply we hurt him, and I want to fix things, but I feel like I've ruined all the progress I had made in trying to get him to open up again. I'm at a loss for what to do next. The kids are missing their dad, and I'm struggling to find a way to mend things with Marcus, who seems to be shutting us out. Any advice on how to move forward from here and rebuild trust would be really appreciated.
Update.
Hey Reddit, I got flamed a lot for messing things up, and I totally understand why. I do deserve it. This is all my fault. Thankfully, I did manage to get in touch with Marcus. Over the weekend, he came over to see the kids, who were thrilled to see him, and apologized profusely. Marcus accepted their apologies, which was a relief. However, when it came to me, things took a turn I wasn't expecting. Marcus accepted my apology too, but he made it clear that accepting it didn't mean he was ready to move past everything. He waited until the kids were out on an errand, which I knew was just an excuse to have a private conversation with me. Once they were gone, he told me that while he forgave me, he wanted a divorce. I was stunned. I thought his visit meant we might be able to work things out, but apparently that wasn't the case. Marcus said he was done with me undermining him so much. He understood that the kids were kids and might be influenced by me, but as an adult, I should have known better. He said he was done and couldn't continue in this marriage. I started crying, but he asked me to stop because he didn't want the kids to see me upset. He assured me that he would explain things to them and that he would remain involved in their lives, even if we were no longer together. He waited until the kids returned and spent some time with them before leaving. I don't think he's told them yet, because they still seem okay and haven't asked about us separating. I had to wait until they were in bed before I could let myself cry and sob into my pillow. It's been about 3 days since then, and I've been like a zombie at work. My performance has dropped significantly. I feel completely zoned out and lost. I haven't told anyone yet because I'm still in shock. This was the man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, and now he doesn't want me anymore. It feels like a sick joke, and I don't know how to move forward. I'm struggling to cope with the reality that my marriage is ending, and I'm finding it hard to function normally.
Update.
Yes, I know I messed up and brought this on myself. You've all been reminding me of that, and I get it. I know it's my fault, and I'm not trying to argue that. What I'm asking for is a bit of sympathy, just a little bit. The reason I'm continuing to update here is because, surprisingly, it's helping me process everything, even if it sounds crazy. So here's the latest update. Marcus finally served me with divorce papers. It's been a couple of weeks since everything went down, and I've been trying to pull myself together. At first I thought it was just a bad dream, that Marcus would come to his senses and change his mind. But as time went on, it became clear that he was serious and truly done with me. And I've been trying to focus on work to keep myself from completely falling apart. If I'm going to get dumped, at least I can try to keep my work performance up. The other day, Marcus came over to the house to serve me with the divorce papers. He took the kids with him, I assumed to give me some space to process everything. I tried to act strong and composed when he handed me the papers, wanting him to see that I wasn't falling apart and that I could handle this on my own. But the moment he left, I broke down. I cried uncontrollably and felt utterly devastated. Even when he and the kids returned, I wasn't myself. The kids didn't look great either. Our youngest seemed to have been crying, and they all kept asking me if the separation was their fault. I assured them it wasn't, because it wasn't. It was my fault and Marcus's fault, not theirs. So that's it, we're getting divorced. I don't think Marcus has told anyone yet, or else my phone would be blowing up with messages. I know he'll eventually let people know. Right now, it still feels like I'm trapped in a nightmare, and I'm struggling to wake up.
Update.
Hey Reddit, it's me again. I know it's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and surprisingly, many of you have been reaching out for one. So here I am with the latest. First off, Marcus finally told everyone about the divorce. As you might expect, my phone was inundated with calls, messages, and texts. It got so overwhelming that I had to switch it off. I decided to take the kids out for a mommy and me day to escape the chaos, and we had a surprisingly good time together. The kids have been spending a lot of time with Marcus. I recently found out that he's staying with his best friend who was looking for a roommate anyway. I guess things worked out for them in that regard. I'm not sure if I should be happy for them or not. The kids seem to be adjusting, and I suppose they're trying to make up for their behavior before all of this happened. After Marcus announced the split, the flood of messages continued. I tried explaining things to my parents, but they've been blaming me, as have his parents, our siblings, and even our mutual friends. Everyone except a few personal friends of mine seems to be against me. However, even those friends have been pretty toxic in their support, and I've come to realize that their comments have been less than helpful. They've been insulting Marcus, calling him weak and saying he's not a real man. But deep down, I know that's not true. Marcus has been an incredible father, and I was completely wrong to undermine him in front of the kids. I've been trying to apologize to Marcus, though he doesn't really respond to my texts. I understand that he might need time, but I hope he'll eventually come around, especially since we'll need to co-parent for a long time. The blame from everyone, including strangers online, has been intense, and while I know it's my fault, a bit of sympathy wouldn't hurt. It feels like everyone is just piling on. I'm currently not speaking to my parents because they've been more supportive of Marcus, and I feel incredibly betrayed. A few days ago, Marcus came over to pack up his things, accompanied by his best friend. The finality of it all hit me hard. It felt like a concrete end, and it's been really difficult to cope with. If it weren't for the kids, I don't know where I'd be emotionally right now. They're the only thing keeping me grounded, and I'm trying my best to stay strong for them, despite feeling like I'm just barely holding on.
Update.
Hey Reddit, sorry for not updating in a while. It's been a couple of months now, hasn't it? I've been focusing on getting through each day, dealing with the kids, and adjusting to life after the divorce. The divorce has been finalized. It was pretty straightforward, given that we'd only been married for 8 years. I didn't qualify for spousal support or alimony. Not that I would have accepted it anyway. Marcus and I agreed on custody arrangements before the proceedings even started. He didn't want primary custody and opted for weekend visitation rights, so I got full custody of the kids, which honestly seemed to be the best option, especially since changing schools and uprooting them would have been too disruptive. We've separated our finances, and the only significant issue was the house, which was a marital asset. I ended up buying Marcus out of the house. It's really close to the kids' school, and I didn't want to move far from their routine. The house is full of memories, and while it's hard to be reminded of all the good times with Marcus, it felt like the right thing to do for the kids' stability. I've been in touch with Marcus more recently because, as we'll be co-parenting for the foreseeable future, we need to find a way to work together. It's not as strained as it was before, but it's still challenging. I cry myself to sleep most nights and am struggling with the realization of how difficult things have been without him. The house is a mess. I can't believe how much Marcus managed to keep things in order while working full-time and even putting in extra hours. Now, with him gone, maintaining the house has become a huge struggle. The kids have started doing chores, which they didn't have to do before, and they're not happy about it. So that's where I'm at, just trying to get by and live day to day. I'm still grappling with a lot of self-hatred and regret. I appreciate the few people who have offered support and useful advice. To the rest, your comments haven't been helpful, and honestly, they've been pretty miserable. So, thanks to those who have been kind, and to those who haven't, well, you can just keep your negativity to yourselves.